Representative Melissa Hortman. Melissa Hortman wasn't just a politician. She was a mother, a lawyer, a proud daughter of Minnesota. Born in Fridley, she spent her early life walking the same quiet suburban streets she'd later represent in office. She studied law at the University of Minnesota and quickly became known for her fierce advocacy on climate policy, education, and women's rights. Elected to the Minnesota House of Representatives in 2005, Melissa was one of the longest-serving Democrats in the state legislature. By 2019, she rose to Speaker of the House, making history as a progressive leader who never backed down, even when it was unpopular. Colleagues say she was always early to work, always stayed after meetings to listen, not just to allies but to opponents too. At home, she was a loving wife to Mark, her college sweetheart, and the proud mother of 2 grown children. June 14, 2025, was just another day on the job. She had no idea it would be her last. Mark Hortman, the quiet rock behind the public leader. Mark Hortman wasn't in politics, but he stood behind one of Minnesota's best. A school teacher by training and a community mentor by nature, Mark was known for being Melissa's rock. They met in college and married young. 2 Midwestern hearts grounded in shared purpose. While Melissa handled politics, Mark was the anchor at home, gardening, volunteering at church, or reading on the porch with their dog curled at his feet. He was described by neighbors as gentle, curious, and deeply loyal. That night, when the shots were fired, he didn't run. He tried to protect his wife, and died doing so. Senator John Hoffman, the advocate for the invisible. John Hoffman's voice wasn't loud, but his message was powerful. He spent years working for people no one noticed, children with disabilities, families without health care, and the elderly stuck in silence. Elected to the Minnesota Senate in 2012, Hoffman became known for his bipartisan tone and relentless push for better health services, mental health reform, and education funding. A father of 3 and a former broadcaster, John loved grilling outside, supporting local sports teams, and showing up to small town halls with nothing but a notepad and his time. He lived in Champlin with his wife Yvette and was resting in his recliner that night just after dinner when everything changed. A knock, then bullets. Yvette Hoffman. The heart of the family. Yvette Hoffman was never in the spotlight, and she liked it that way. To her, the greatest accomplishments were the ones no one saw. Packing lunchboxes for her kids, leading prayer groups, helping elderly neighbors, and keeping the Hoffman household grounded. She and John had been married for nearly 30 years. They built their lives slowly, purposefully, the kind of couple who remembered anniversaries and still danced in the kitchen. Yvette was hit in the abdomen and chest. She survived, barely. But in her own words after waking from surgery, "He tried to kill our bodies, but not our love." 4 lives forever changed, 2 taken, 2 scarred, and behind it all, a man with a list, a disguise, and a plan to send a message in blood. In the land of 10,000 lakes, democracy was ambushed. June 14, 2025. A coordinated political assassination rocked the state of Minnesota. 2 respected lawmakers, 2 peaceful homes, 1 shooter dressed as a protector. This is the story of the man who tried to destroy an entire political system, armed with hate, a disguise, and a deadly list. It began in Brooklyn Park, 9:46 p.m. The home of Minnesota House Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark was silent until it wasn't. A neighbor calls 911, reporting
911, what's your
gunshots and
emergency?
shouting. First responders arrived to find both Melissa and Mark dead, executed, their home ransacked, no sign of forced entry. Exactly 29 minutes later, a second call comes in, this time in Champlin at the residence of State Senator John Hoffman and his wife, Yvette. Both are found severely wounded. Shot in their living room? Yvette is barely breathing. John clings to life. Police realize this wasn't a coincidence. This was a coordinated strike. A BOLO is issued. Within hours, police link both scenes to a single individual, Vance Luther Boelter, 57, from Savage, Minnesota. Boelter had no recent criminal record. But in his truck, parked just blocks away from a third potential target's home, police found chilling contents: a fake police badge, bulletproof vest, a loaded Glock 19, multiple burner phones, and a manila folder labeled Enemies of America. Inside that folder, over 60 names, all Minnesota state legislators, all Democrats, all publicly known for their stance on abortion rights, gun control, and LGBTQ+ protections. Investigators uncover Vance's online trail. He'd been active on underground messaging boards for years, calling elected officials traitors and domestic enemies. One message read, "The tree of liberty must be watered again, and I've got the hose." Another, "I know where they sleep. The people won't act, so I will." His laptop contained a handwritten manifesto: mission, purge Minnesota, reclaim the Constitution. He had meticulously tracked the daily routines of his targets, even noting which ones lacked home security systems. But what turned Vance from radical to killer? Detectives point to a tipping point. In early 2025, Minnesota passed a reproductive rights bill. To Vance, this was war. June 15th, 2025, a statewide manhunt begins. Every available officer is called in. Helicopters, drones, roadblocks. The public is urged to stay indoors. By mid-morning, a civilian tips off police. Vance was spotted near a storage facility outside Maple Grove. Inside, they find him, calm, seated, armed. He doesn't resist arrest. His words? "The mission's done. Now let them listen." Vance Boelter is charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder, 2 counts of attempted murder, federal charges for firearms possession and online stalking. The FBI calls it a domestic terror plot. His legal team pleads not guilty by reason of insanity, but prosecutors argue otherwise. They present hours of planning, stalking, and journal entries as proof of premeditation. The trial draws national attention. Political figures testify about increased threats, and the case sparks fierce debate. Is this the future of political violence in America? Minnesota mourns. Melissa Hortman, a public servant for 20 years, remembered as a mother, lawyer, and leader. Senator Hoffman survives, but walks with a cane, his voice now quieter. His wife Yvette spends 3 weeks in critical care. The state increases security for all elected officials. But fear lingers. Lawmakers now wear bulletproof vests under their suits. Some relocate, others resign. The question remains, was Vance Luther Boelter a lone wolf, or just the first wolf brave enough to act? Politics has always been passionate, but when passion becomes poison, and ideology turns into ammunition, we must ask, how do we protect democracy when democracy becomes the target? This was Minnesota. This was 2025. This was the hit list. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and share with a friend. And tap the bell so you never miss a case.